Dr. Soumitra Basu is a consultant psychiatrist based in Kolkata and Pondicherry. He works with the consciousness paradigm of health and psychology. He is also founder and editor of NAMA, the Journal of Integral Health. And at this point, those of us who would like to subscribe to the e-journal or a print copy, please get in touch with James for those of us who are interested. He is also the author of book Integral Health, and recently he is authoring a book which is in press with Dr. Michael Movick of USA, which talks about consciousness-based psychology, CBP, and where he's using the teachings of Sri Aurobindo and Mother and looking at psychopathology and counseling from an entirely different perspective. So today we look forward to your talk, Dr. Basu, and over to you.
And thank you, James. So am I audible? Is this okay? Am I audible properly?
Yes, you are to me, Dr. Basu.
Yes, it's okay, na? The voice is okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, we start a bit late because of technical reasons, but we'll go straight to the topic. First thing, in yoga psychology, there is one very important realization that a human being is not perfect. So this is very interesting and very important to remember also. The human being is not perfect. You see, the tiger is perfect in its ferocity, in its grandeur. The lotus is perfect in its beauty and in its delicacy. But the human being is imperfect. You see, the lotus will always be a lotus. The tiger will always be a tiger. But only the human being has been given an opportunity to exceed oneself, to surpass oneself, to outgrow oneself. So, if I am perfect, I have no necessity or no impulsion to outgrow myself. And that is why it is very important that every one of us have some imperfection of the other. So that is the stepping stone. In fact, that is the staircase from where we have to jump into the unknown. And that imperfection may be different things in different people. For some people, it will be something in their character. They might be having difficulty in controlling their anger. Some people might be very greedy. Some people might be very lustful. Some people might have chronic diseases. Some people might have handicaps. You see? But then there is a challenge that you have to outgrow them. This is why in mental retardation and all types of retardation, visual retarded and physically retarded and all, we do not use the word retarded nowadays. We use the word challenged. We don't tell mentally retarded. We tell mentally challenged. We don't tell blind, visually handicapped. We say it's challenged, visually challenged, because it's challenge. God has sent you to the world without the eyesight, and it's a challenge if you can live in that world. So like that, for us, all life is like that, is a challenge that we have to outgrow our imperfection. And why we are imperfect? Why we are imperfect? Because are we not supposed to be children of immortality? As we have said in the Vedas, Amritasya Putra. We are Amritasya Putra. Then why are we imperfect? Because, of course, we are Amritasya Putra because the evolution started because there was a decree that came from the superconscious. Something came from the superconscious, some decree, and that's how evolution started. And that's why, because we have been born, we have been evolving because something wanted in the superconscious that we evolved. So we are rightfully the children of immortality. But practically what happens is that evolution starts from the inconscious. And the inconscious, what is the inconscious? The inconscious is a matrix where all that was there in the superconscious came down and turned into their opposites. You see, all that was there in the superconscious, it came down, down. Sri Aurobindo describes it through a process of involution, and it came down into the inconscious, and it became an opposite. So love became hatred, life became death, light became darkness, knowledge became ignorance, love became what you call the jealousy was the opposite of what you call a fellow feeling. All the things, all the opposite things happen. And from that matrix, which contains all the opposite things, I would say it is a mud. It is just mud, where everything is what you call interspersed with each other. Everything has come down and they have got interspersed with each other. And it has become a quite mess, a big mess of things in the inconscious. And from that inconscious, which is a big mess, an evolution is starting. And therefore, we are bringing into the evolution, when we are evolving, we are bringing all these stains, all what was there in the inconscious, all the mud we are bringing in. So we are bringing in hatred, jealousy, death, all these things. When we are evolving, we are from the very beginning, they are encrypted. They are just encrypted in our being. So we are developing along with them. Now this is why at the outer personality, everything is so confusing and everything is mixed with each other. And in the outer personality, you cannot separate all the planes of the consciousness, the physical, vital, mental, because in the unconscious they were all mixed together. And that's why when they come to the outer being, you find such a big mess of things, and that mess is carried to the surface personality, and it is that which is responsible for many of our disharmonies, many of our illnesses, many of our problems in life. You see, all are mixed together. You can't separate the three. The mind, body, and the emotions, they are all mixed together. So if the mind wants that today I will read Savitri very diligently, the body can come up with a headache and can, you will not be able to read. Or you have a lot of energy to do a lot of work, but the mind comes up with some clear ideas, and or you get angry and you destroy the whole day and your whole energy gets wasted and you are unable to do the work which you thought that you would be doing in the morning. So like that, everything is so much jumbled up together, and there's a lot of disharmony that is going on in the outer being. And this disharmony, which is there in the outer being, is one of the reasons, one of the causes of our illnesses, Now from the yoga psychology point of view, to get out of this mess, you have to go to the inner being, which is behind the outer personality. You see, the surface personality is not the only representative of ourselves. So behind our surface personality, we have an inner being, we have an inner personality, which is linked with the cosmic consciousness. It's a very big thing. We have an inner mind, which has got capacities which the outer mind doesn't have. We have an inner vital. It's very important. I will come to the inner vital. It has got a lot of energy, and that energy is not cramped by the mind, not cramped by the body. So it is a free energy, and it is in connection with the energy in the cosmos. So that's there behind. And then there we have the inner physical. Of course, the word inner physical doesn't sound nice in English, so Sri Aurobindo used the word subtle physical. We'll talk about the subtle physical also today. Now all this, you see, the inner being, unless we go to the inner being, we are not ready for perfecting our being so that it becomes free from illnesses. So from yoga psychology, to heal yourself, you have to get out of the mess that is there in the outer being, which is not our fault. It has come in evolution from the inconscious. You have to get out of that mess, and that mess is more problematic because it is revolving around the ego. The ego is something which is holding it together. You see, something has to be there to hold it together, otherwise it will fall apart. Like that, it is a mess. And secondly, there is a possibility that everything will fall apart. So the ego is just holding on that. And behind the outer being is the inner being, where the ego doesn't have any access. The ego doesn't have any access to the inner being. The inner being is supported behind by the soul principle or the psychic being. So the inner being is something which is free from the influence of the ego. And when we gradually go to the inner being, if we learn to go there, then we can understand the difference between the physical, vital and the mental parts of our being. And then only we can then work on them, and then finally we can bring them together around a central entity of the psychic being. So the first thing is, you have to go to the inner being, and then only you can understand the different qualities. In the outer being, they are so mixed with each other, you will not be able to understand. On the other hand, in the outer being, They are so mixed with each other. It is the mixtures of the different planes that cause different types of illnesses, different types of problems. It's a very big thing. I will not go into that subject, but I will just tell you, for example, there's the vital physical. Now, what's the vital physical? The vital physical is that you just remember when there was the physical consciousness, when physical consciousness was evolving. In evolution, first it was the matter that was evolving. The physical consciousness came first. And over the physical consciousness, at certain point of time, the life energy came and impinged on the physical consciousness. You see, the life energy, which was buoyant, it came and it impinged on the physical consciousness. The physical consciousness also has an energy, but that energy is dormant. But the vital has got a lot of buoyant energy, and when it is impinging on the vital, there is a friction. There is a friction, and that friction in the vital physical is carried like a post-traumatic stress. You know, we have a disease called post-traumatic stress disorder. Means long after you have got a trauma, you can relieve that trauma, and you can relieve that stress associated with that trauma. So like that, in a post-traumatic stress, something like that is carried, and in our illnesses, they come out as different attributes. They come out in our illnesses. And that you see that the physical and the vital are so mixed together, and that's why Sri Aurobindo said that the vital physical is responsible for many of our diseases of the nervous system. It is Sri Aurobindo said that is responsible for many of our nervous system. And because the combination of the vital and physical, we can understand now that there are many people who are having pain, chronic pain, which doesn't respond to painkillers, but they respond to antidepressants. How they respond to antidepressants is not known. From the pharmacological angle, we don't understand that how they respond, how pain, which doesn't respond to painkillers, responds to antidepressants. But if you see from Sri Aurobindo's understanding of the vital physical, then you can understand that that is something that is possible. So all these different combinations are there. So this is a very big subject. I will not go into all of them because all these things take a lot of time. I'll give you some pertinent examples. For example, you see, one common thing we have with the vital is that in our corporate culture today, in our consumerist culture, in our corporate world, we have to work with a lot of energy, and that energy is tuned with the constants of time. We are always competing with time. Therefore, in the corporate world, you are always working with according to time schedules. That this is something you have to finish by this time. This is something that you have to work by this time. This is something that is a project that you have to finish by that deadline. You see, always we are competing with time, and this competition with time, it actually eats us up. It eats us up, and we get ill. We don't know. This is one of the reasons that why we say with type A personality. Type A personality is a work alcoholic. The typical corporate personality, the executive in the company, who is working and working and working according to time schedules. Now this person gets heart diseases, ischemic heart diseases, 10 years before the general population. 10 years before the general population, he will suffer a heart problem. Now why is it? Because that enormous amount of stress that he can't take it. And that stress is linked with that is again, we have linked it by competing with time. Now, what is the solution to it? Not to work, to take holidays. It doesn't work. The solution is, if you go, you see, this is something which I take these sessions in the corporate sector, and I take weekly sessions, I teach them, then how you can go cultivate an inner poise of silence and peace. You can cultivate an inner poise of silence and peace. An inner being, you have to cultivate your inner vital. And that inner vital is something which contains energy in a very stabilized way. And that energy is linked with the cosmic energy. Once you are connected with your inner energy, the inner vital, then, and you see, because you are not linked with the ego, you are not competing with time anymore, because that inner energy is linked with timelessness, with eternity. So if that is a dimension of time, that is a dimension of timelessness. When you go to the inner being, you get linked with timelessness. And immediately what happens, that stress is removed, and you can work without having a heart disease. So you can go on working, you can work actually more effectively and without having the fear of having a heart disease. So you see, that's a very beautiful technique. It's a very practical example of yoga psychology. And then there is another important thing in the inner mind, which is very important, that the inner being actually can rise up to the superconscious. The inner being is behind us. It rises up to the superconscious. And when it rises up to the superconscious, two things happen which are also necessary to understand how we can get out of our illness and be healthy. One is, you see, one Sri Aurobindo explains that in our outer mind, our big problem is that there is a difference, huge difference between knowledge and willpower. You see, knowledge and willpower, they have come from Chit Shakti. Chit Shakti or consciousness force. Chit Shakti is there in Satchidananda. They are together. They are the same thing. They are not separate. And down below in the atom, the electrons also know that they have to rotate. No? If the electrons today decide that we will not rotate, we will stop rotating, what will happen? The universe will collapse. So the electrons have a knowledge that they have to rotate, and they have an energy to go on rotating. In a human being, the knowledge and willpower, they have become separate. I might have great knowledge. It happens in people with depression. Huh? They have knowledge what to do, but they don't have the energy to do anything. Or people with, you see, the opposite of depression is a phase of excitement, manic phase, where also I have got great energy, great willpower. I want to do great things, but my knowledge is not consistent. It is consisting of fleeting ideas. So what happens is that knowledge and will are not there together. That's why if you are ill, if I have a fever, I don't have the willpower to tell the body that you will not suffer. If I have a pain, I don't have that willpower to tell the body that no, you will not suffer the pain. You can walk today for half a kilometer. I do not do that because the knowledge and will are separated. So this is, when we go to the inner mind, gradually when we develop the inner mind, this is one thing that happens, that knowledge and will can come together. I will say that you can start this very simple thing by when you concentrate. Many of you must be concentrating between your eyebrows. You see, to increase willpower, we concentrate between our eyebrows, within the center, the chakra here within our eyebrows. But I will tell that you modify this. When you concentrate within the eyebrows, it's not to increase my willpower. I will concentrate within the eyebrows to link my willpower to the universal energy, to the universal willpower. So when you do that, gradually that knowledge and will, gradually you will be able to bring a little bit together. So when you are concentrating between your eyebrows, you don't have to think, you don't do this because you are wanting to increase your willpower, just your individual willpower. You are doing it because you want to link your individual will with the universal will. So let the universal will flow through me, because the universal will is linked to the universal knowledge. My individual will is not linked with the universal knowledge, but the universal will is linked. And what I can do when I concentrate, I will concentrate that my individual will, let it be linked with the universal will. Let it be an instrument of the universal will. So this is something which you can do, and you will see that gradually that in illness you will have the willpower to sustain the illness and to rise above your illness. So that is a great thing. The other thing is the other very beautiful thing of Sri Aurobindo, which has got many ramifications, not only here. That is, when you rise above the mind, you rise above different levels of the mind. The inner mind rises up. When the inner mind rises up, it rises up to different zones of what you call consciousness force, different zones of Chit Shakti, different cognitive zones. I call them supracognitive zones. We call them supracognitive zones. So just above my mind, that is an area, that is a plane where all ideas are there together. You see, we are actually suffer. In the world we suffer very much. Many types of suffering we suffer because of exclusive ideas. My idea is right. My thinking is right. I am thinking that this is why I have become ill. I am thinking, it might be that I am thinking that my ideology is the best, my philosophy is the best, or it may be my idea about the body is the best. I think that what I know about my body is the supreme. That is the way my body has to be dealt with. But that is a level where all ideas have an equal value, the opposite ideas also. You see, there is a level where above the mind, there is a level of mind where contradictory and complementary ideas exist together. It's just like that when I first start my classes with counseling students, then I ask them that, are you here the same regardless of your caste, color, sex, religion? And they are all master's degree students. They will always say passionate. No? They will always say, yes, we are all same, we are students. Then I tell them that is a level of thought where all ideas have equal value. Unless you go there, you cannot rise above your exclusive thinking. You will not be able to be a good counselor. Counselor not only for others, but a counselor for yourself. You say, heal yourself is that you will be doing counseling to yourself. And to be a counselor to yourself, all your rigid dogmatic ideas, you have to get over them. Unless you get over your dogmatic ideas, in some plane or other, you will have some dogmatic idea. You might not have dogmatic ideas at the level of philosophy, at the level of religion, but you might have a dogmatic idea at the level of the functioning of your liver or your stomach or something. Somewhere or the other, we carry some dogmatic, some exclusive ideas. So only when we can rise up, and in consciousness, in the inner mind, we rise up to a plane where we can be there comfortably with all sorts of ideas, then we can rise above this, what Mother called exclusivism, exclusive ideas. So that is the exclusivism. You rise above that, and you see that immediately you are free from all these dogmatic holds on your system. Even I will say that if you practice this from our childhood, might be that we can be free from delusional ideas. You know, in psychiatry, I'm a psychiatrist, and my main worry is delusional ideas of schizophrenics. But you hear that schizophrenics have delusional ideas, but below the delusional ideas are overvalued ideas. Overvalued ideas, they are not mental patients. Overvalued ideas means I give more value to an idea. The more value to that idea, that idea might be concerning religion, that idea might be concerning philosophy, that idea might be concerning my body's workings, that idea might be concerning my obsession with food, with vegetarianism or non-vegetarianism or this or that or anything. You see, just to rise above all these things, this hold of this dogmatism over your system, and you will see that you will feel free. And then when you are free, there only intuitive ideas can come and guide you to do what is best to be done. You see, we don't have sustained intuitive ideas. We have, sometimes intuition comes to us to tell what to do, but they come to us in what you call leaps, in sudden jerks, and in sudden jumps they come. They don't come in a consistent way, because there is a hold of our dogmatism over our system. When we are free from that dogmatism from our system, then we are open to intuitive ideas. You see, what's an intuitive idea? So in the morning, one intuitive idea came and told you that today you should not catch cold, and you forgot it. And then afterwards you took a chilled cold drink, and then you got a sore throat. But early in the morning you will remember, if something had told you, some inner voice had told you that don't take cold drink, don't catch cold today. But you just forgot it, we just forget it. You see, we can't sustain those things. So to make intuition more sustainable in our system, to make it more acceptable in our system, you have to make your mind free by losing all these type of rigid ideas that we have and which are holding our system together. So this is one very, what you call very practical, a very practical way when you have to go above. Now all these things are there. There are, our time is short. I will just tell you that there are other very interesting things in which we fall ill, and one of them is occult factors. Of course, that requires a completely separate session to understand the influence of occult factors on our system. Many people come and tell me that, sir, I have done nothing wrong in my life. Why should I suffer? Like illness? I have never cheated in my life. I have never done dishonest in my life. Then what is this price? Is this a karma? Then I tell them that no, it is not related to your being honest or dishonest. Nothing. It is not related to that. You see, if you are driving a car on the road correctly, you are driving with the correct norms, it doesn't mean that you will not have an accident, because the car on the opposite side might have a drunk driver. So occultism is like that. Even if you are okay, even if everything is all right, everything is in harmony. In Life Divine, Sri Aurobindo has said towards the end, where everything has been accounted for. All factors have been taken into consideration, everything, so that perfection will come. At the last moment, there is one thing, and that is the occult factor. That can come and that can destroy everything. As he has said in one of his sonnets, to the world, the inconscient power that thou hast given the right, thou hast given the right to oppose the shining passage of my soul. To this world's inconscient power, thou hast given the right to oppose the shining passage of my soul. So this is, you have to be very conscious. It's a very different subject, I'm just guiding you. But some occult factors arise from ourselves. Some occult factors, it is not that all occult factors come from outside. Of course, mostly they will come from outside, from the cosmic consciousness. There are giant negative waves which if we are not cautious, they enter into us. But we also have negative mental formations. We also can think negatively for many, many years. And our negative thoughts can become a formation. And that formation can possess us. You see, I always tell that example of that lady who was suffering from depression for many, many years. And for many, many years she was suffering, I think for 30 years. And one day as she came and told me that, you know, that I am seeing my corpse dangling over my head. My dead body is just dangling over my head. So I didn't know what to do. I thought that she was going to die. She was going to commit suicide. So I just took her and gave her an electric current. And then she told me, fortunately you gave me. If you had not given it, I would have committed suicide today. Then I understood that 20 years she was thinking negatively. There is no use living, life is so pessimistic, everything is so bad. You see, these negative ideas, for 20 years, they were nurtured, sustained, and they became a possession, and they possess that person. So it is not that always you are possessed by outside forces. You might be possessed by your own negative ideas. Remember that. And from then, as we are talking about the occult factors, there is another great thing, very important thing, that is also a risk in spiritual pursuits. You see, there is also a risk in spiritual things. You see that we were attending in Pondicherry, we had a international yoga conference, and one yoga teacher was saying very proudly that if you do yoga, you will not have any illness. So you see that's ridiculous. Big yogis have big illnesses. You see, big yogis have cancers, have very big illnesses. You see, whether Sri Ramakrishna had cancer and Raman Maharshi had cancer, but the reason is different. The reason is different. You see what happens many different things happen when you are doing a spiritual pursuit. You have to be also very cautious when you are doing a spiritual pursuit. When you have a spiritual agenda, you have to be very, very cautious that you don't become ill because of that agenda. One common thing is that sometimes we bring down a great force, but our system is not ready to bear that force. You see, we have pulled a big force. We have very sincerely, we have pulled a big force, but the system is not ready to bear that force. You see, one of my friends in the ashram, senior, he was very diligently, he was concentrating and meditating in a conventional way, very seriously. And then suddenly he started having headaches which were not going away. And when he went to the mother, when seeing her from a distance, seeing him for a distance, the mother got angry. Mother rebuked him. Mother told him, "Why do you pull? Why do you pull? This is not a place of pulling." And when he came to the mother put her hands over her head, and immediately his headache was gone. And then he told me, actually mother was not scolding me. She was scolding that entities which had come and were holding me because I was concentrating so much and I had lost my balance, and I had allowed the entities, vital entities, to come and just take a hold over me. So that is one thing. That is what you call we have to be very cautious about that. Then what happens to big yogis, why they have big illnesses, is because their inner being grows very fast. The outer being cannot follow suit. You see, the inner being grows so fast and the outer being cannot follow suit. And in the mismatch between the inner being and the outer being, that can cause the yogis to have great illnesses. That is one thing. Another risky thing which Sri Aurobindo said, which is the intermediate zone. When you are crossing from the inner being to the outer being, from the outer being to the inner being, when you are crossing from the outer being to the inner being, there is a gap. And that gap Sri Aurobindo called the intermediate zone. between the outer being and the inner being, there's a gap. And in that gap, you can fall. Actually, before going to the inner being, you can slip and fall into the intermediate zone. And then you can become prone to many illnesses, even including hallucinations, illusions, delusions, psychiatric illnesses, physical illnesses. Many things can occur when you can fall there. And then there is another great risk. When the inner being is open to the cosmic consciousness, now your inner being has become very sensitive and you have widened into the cosmic consciousness. You have read the synthesis of yoga and you have tried to widen yourself into the cosmic consciousness. Then what happens? In the cosmic consciousness, there are great positive waves, but there are also great negative waves. There are great positive waves, but there are great negative waves. Sri Aurobindo calls these negative waves as hostile forces. Hostile forces, and they can enter you. And when they can enter you, what they can do? They can do two things. They can go to the front, catch hold of your ego, and they can make you diabolical. You see, some people, some yogis, they start their lives very nicely. We read in the newspapers. After some time, their character changes. Something like that happens in some of these cases. That they started very seriously, they were very sincere, they opened to the cosmic consciousness, and the hostile forces entered and just got hold of the ego, because the ego has not been worked upon. You see, in integral yoga, you have to work on everything simultaneously. That's why this is integral yoga. Everything you have to work on simultaneously. Or the other thing it can happen, the hostile forces can come inside and make a curtain between your psychic being and the rest of the being. It can raise a curtain. You can raise an obstruction between the soul and the rest of the being. So the soul cannot exert its effect on the rest of the being. This is called possession. You know, in Sri Aurobindo's dictionary, what possession doesn't mean that you are possessed by some ghost that you see in fairy tale books. It's not like that. It's the hostile forces, energies coming inside you from the cosmic consciousness and cutting off the soul from the rest of the being. That's actual possession, which is a very difficult thing. So all this I'm just telling you, this is how to meet them, how to act with them is something very difficult. We don't have time. Before we finish, I will tell you two things because we started late. One is, in the inner being, in the inner mind, you can practice bringing down the light. And when you practice bringing down the light in your system, I will request you, you take hold of science. You see, make a synthesis of science and spirituality. So this is an exercise I frequently give. I would have given the full exercise, but we don't have time. Just explaining to you that after making the mind silent, absolutely silent, I tell the individual to picture the brain substance inside the mind. You just picture the brain substance, and if you have no idea of the brain, you take the idea from the internet. So the internet is available. You see the organ brain. It has what you call the different lobes of the brain are there. There's a midbrain, there's a hindbrain, there are different parts. Or you visualize a neuron, which is a typical nerve cell, which has an axon from where information flows and many dendrites from where information enters. So information enters the cell from many sides, but goes only in one direction, but comes from many directions. That type of cell you can just imagine inside your mind. You place the brain and then you invoke the light from above, and let your brain be penetrated, or that nerve cell be penetrated and soaked with that light that you visualize that is coming down from above. A light that is, it can be golden, it can be white. It is a light of peace and silence, something that is coming up down from above, and it is soaking your system, and it is penetrating your whole brain substance. Your whole brain substance is being penetrated. You see, I have taken this exercise from one of Sri Aurobindo's sonnets, where he actually speaks that the grey cells of mind. You see, he's so particular about the scientific thing. Grey cells of mind means grey matter. Grey matter is the cells. The brain has two types of things. One is the grey matter and the white matter. The grey matter is the cell, the white matter is the nerve fibers. And Sri Aurobindo is saying the grey matters of mind he's talking about that. So he's wanting to bring the light there. So he's wanting to bring the light into the substance the anatomical and physiological substance of the brain. You bring the light there, you do this exercise. After some time, you will see that you have a change in your functioning. Your memory will increase. Your understanding of things will increase. Many changes will happen. And then you can extend this exercise to other parts of your system. So you have other organs. Suppose somebody of you has a problem with the liver, somebody has a problem with the kidney, somebody has a problem with the pancreas, somebody has a problem with the stomach. I will say go to the internet. See the structure of the organ. Place the organ, visualize the organ there in your system, and bring and invoke the light that comes down from above, invoke it and bring down into that organ. So let your organs participate in your yoga, in your meditation, in your yoga, in your offering to the divine. Let your organs also participate. Remember, the new body that mother is going to do, the organs will change. This is also necessary. It's not that I am telling you just to be free from illness. If you see when Sri Aurobindo wrote The Divine Body, one of his last writings before he passed away, he is talking about how our organs will change and they will become transmitters of energy. Instead of being raw organs, they will become transmitters of energy. So I will request you to start with the organ with which you have difficulty. Go to the anatomical and physiological qualities of that organ in the internet. Visualize, put that organ there into that system, and when you bring the light, because for these past few days we have been doing these exercises of invoking the light from above, so I did not repeat that. So you bring that light into your organs. Let your organs participate in this grand yoga. Let your organs participate. And I will tell you another meditation, which and also one of the very inner and occult reasons of the present pandemic and the type of meditation we can do for it. You see, one of the occult reasons of the present pandemic about the virus, what is the virus? You will see, what does it do? The virus is attacking the cell, and outside the cell it is not living, and when it enters the cell it has become living. Now this is very interesting from our Sri Aurobindo's point of view, because now the yoga has come to a place where mother has brought down the yoga to the cellular level. So she is now working, her subtle body is working on the cellular consciousness. Mother's work at present is being done in the cellular consciousness. So this was the last few years of her existence. She was doing that work. It's an extension of that work. In the agenda is full of that kind of description of that cellular consciousness, which is very difficult. You can understand the mind, philosophy and Plato, Socrates and all, but you can't understand what is cellular integrity, what is cellular will, what is cellular attitude. Very difficult to understand. Your understanding of Plato will not lead you to understanding those things. You have to go down to your cells and understand. You have to follow the mother's trail to understand what is there in the body. Now, why I say it is pandemic and I relation with it, because the mother is working on the cells in the cellular consciousness, in the subtle body, so the resistance to that work is to be at the level of the cell. That is why the resistance is to be at the level of the cell. It is very natural. Any good work will have a resistance. Any good thing that you do in the world will always have a resistance. And so mother's work on the body, will have a resistance. On the cell will have a resistance, and that resistance is very ideally provided by the virus, because the virus is acting on the cell. And then, of course, cancer is also acting on the cell. So the cancer was also a great, obstruction to the cellular work of cellular consciousness, which is why mother also was very particular about cancer patients, and she was working to see that how cancer can be solved. And she has also said that in the subtle world, the victory over cancer has already been done. Now, so some other thing is left. In the subtle world, she has indicated that the victory of cancer is already been done. So then what is left is something more. You see, why the virus is something more than the cancer disease, because the virus is, you see, unlike the cancer, it can be transmitted. It can be transmitted, and this is where it is working against the work of the mother, because mother has said that when the cells will be worked upon, when the cells will start changing, immediately there will be a transmission. There will be a transmission of that change to other cells. An immediate transmission, a very fast transmission will occur. So if one work is done at one point, on one cell, immediately that work will be transmitted with rapid speed to other cells. So it is not only the work on the cell, but it is the phenomenon of transmission that is also there. And this viral pandemic is not only working against the cell, but also it is because it is so highly, it is what you call infectious, so that transmitting from one subject to the other also is there and is posing a great threat to humanity and is also a great challenge to earthing. So I would request you that you can do this meditation while you are doing that, strengthen the subtle physical envelope around you. You see, we all of us, around our physical body, we have a subtle physical, the inner physical, and we concentrate on the subtle physical, which is around our body, which is not only around our body, the subtle physical is around all our organs. You see, it is very complicated. It is a very complicated system where it is around our body and it is around all our organs. The subtle physical is surrounding all our organs, it is surrounding all our cells, it is surrounding all our body. So I will say we concentrate on that subtle sheath that is protecting us, and we try to bring down the mother's force. We try to bring down the mother's force so that it gets strengthened, so that it is not penetrated by vital entities like the virus. So this is some meditation that we can do, that we strengthen the vital envelope, what we call the subtle physical, so it is not penetrated by these vital entities. And then when we have succeeded in doing it, we extend that subtle physical and merge the subtle physical with the universal subtle physical. If you go behind you, you see, if you go to your inner being, then you can extend yourself outside the boundaries of your sensory what you call limits, outside the boundary of your sensory limits. You extend yourself, extend to the universal subtle physical. Just as you have an universal mind, just as if you have an universal energy, there's an universal subtle physical, and you can extend it to that. So that is also going to work for the collectivity. So that again, just to repeat, that we concentrate on the subtle physical which is there surrounding us. It is that which become concentrated, condensed, and become the physical. The subtle physical is that which become concentrated and condensed and becomes the physical. And it is this subtle physical surrounding us, surrounding all of us, and we concentrate there and we strengthen it with the mother's force, invoke the mother's force and strength into it, and then extend it to the universal subtle physical. It is a very beautiful meditation, and you can do it, because collectively it is not only going to work for this pandemic or that pandemic, but this collectively is going to work in our subtle physical, which is of course very important, because I told you that it is the cellular consciousness which is the most important thing in our yoga at this moment. Thank you. I have extended, I think we have extended the time. Thank you. Anybody could contribute something, not only questioning, but if you can contribute something for a short time.
Dr. Basu, you can continue for another 20 minutes if you like, because we started late, so, you know, for another quarter of an hour, 20 minutes is fine. Did you hear what I said, Dr. Basu? We can continue for another 15, 20 minutes if you like, because we started very late.
Soumitra ji, I have a question. Are you able to hear?
Yes, yes.
Just that you said in the subtle world, the victory of cancer has already taken place, right?
So, Mother has said that will take time to come into the actual physicality, that takes time to come. No? With the subtle physical, the independence of India, Mother has seen many decades before actual independence happened. But that was executed after many, many years.
So if there is anything that we could do from this side of the world to help speed up anything visual, anything...
work on the body consciousness. That of course requires a very extended session, if you can understand, because you have to understand the body and you have to work on the body consciousness, which is very important. then only we can have a glimpse of how to work on this.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, you could have done a meditation, but then exactly what is Shilpa saying? What exact? What does Shilpa say when she means that? What exact?
We can do a meditation, Dr. Basu, because we have time.
Yes.
The question here from
These questions, will you see, by body consciousness, somebody is, what exactly does it mean by body consciousness? That you see, consciousness is formulated, it is consciousness which is formulated as the mind, as the life energy and the body. But we take the body for granted, so we don't understand that every person's body has something unique. Like, we know that there is something unique in my mind, and there is something unique in my emotions. When I describe a person, I usually think about that person's mind and emotions. I will say that mentally he is a great philosopher. Emotionally he is a very angry sort of person. So there is a uniqueness of his mind being a philosopher, uniqueness of his emotions being having anger. But that his body is also unique. But that we don't know. We have never taken cognizance of the body. So body also has something hidden potentialities, hidden powers that can be brought. Now, what is body consciousness? That I will tell you an example. That my friend here in this Nama office itself, many years back, there was a lady who had come with a extreme shoulder pain for 20-30 years. She had gone to many doctors and who are not being able to treat her. And when she came here to this beach office, when this Nama office was there in the where you now have the retreat and all, and there this doctor who was here, she put her hand on the patient's shoulder every day for 15 minutes and was meditating to see if the shoulder, the consciousness of the body gives some message. And after 3 days, you see, after 3 days the doctor saw a dream of somebody falling from a horse. So the next day she asked the patient that, did you fall from a horse? She said, yes, but that was 50 years back. You see, the 50 years back, that consciousness has been kept in the shoulder. So that's body consciousness. That's body consciousness, which is very interesting. One 10-year-old girl was murdered and her heart was transplanted to an 8-year-old girl. And the 8-year-old girl saw a dream how the first girl was murdered. You see, and the dream was so exact that the miscreants were caught and they were persecuted. It is a very famous case which has been reported throughout the world. And you see, who carried the memory? The consciousness of the event was carried by the heart cells, isn't it? The heart cells carried, or some consciousness got attached to the heart cell or the heart during the transfer, but somehow the heart was a vehicle of a consciousness, or itself it carried that consciousness. But that's body consciousness. We are not aware of it. So we can search for it, we can work on it, we can be aware of it. Yes, for a person who is more in psychological pain than physical pain, then you have to see, because that psychological pain that has different types of psychological pain are there. There might be something which is very clinical, like a pain of depression, which is very common, and that pain depression might be masked. You know, depression is not always overt; it can be covert, it can be masked. But that is also a pain of an existential crisis. You see, there's an existential pain. There's a pain of being lonely. There's a pain of being left alone in the world. There's a pain of meaninglessness in life. There's a pain of boredom in life. So it's a very multifaceted thing. And the best answer is, when to go to help in psychological pain, that you have to help in personality development, in personal growth, in growth in consciousness. Yes, in one of our talks, but that will be a big thing that we can, next when we have an opportunity, I will give that again, that we can actually identify that parts of the body which are not responsive. You see what you can do, you try to make you feel heaviness after a good meditation, try to feel that your body is becoming heavier and heavier, and you will see at certain points, certain places you will not be able to feel heavy. Those are the places which are not receptive to the light, which are not receptive to change. then you have to work on those places. This is a rough thing. What you are told that it requires more expensive thing, but in today's talk, less time I will tell, this is a rough thing that we can just start doing. So of course, that obstinate thoughts are disturbed. First, make the mind silent. First, make the mind silent, and if you can't make it, you will try to get hold of an imagery. I will say that one of the, you see, because we love to work with images, so you think that your mind has become a house that is locked. Visitors are coming from all sides, and they can't enter a locked house because the house is locked. So they have to circle and go away. And these visitors are thoughts, and they are coming. When they are coming in front of the house, they are magnifying, and they are gradually fading off. So this is, I make your mind. You see, then your mind, which is locked, has become silent, empty and silent, empty and silent. But that is not only that. When it has become empty and silent, then you bring down the light from above, and you just visualize that light comes and that fills the mind, filling it brim to brim. So you can do that. That's something very interesting. It's very interesting. You have to make your mind silent. That's a basic thing that you have to do. So after that, we can rise above. Obstinate thoughts and disturb the meditation. You see, you have to rise above that whole level of cognition. You have to rise the center of your consciousness above your thinking mind. So we give different exercises for that. I also show exercises for that. In some other session, we'll do a work on that. That you have to raise the center of consciousness from your present cognitive mind to something beyond. Thank you. Any other, somebody can also add something to what has been said.
Yes, can I say something?
Of course. Didi, you are my greatest inspiration.
Thank you. Dada, I just want to add one thing. I have tried many a time, particularly during the change of weather, which takes place normally in October and March. The body parts, particularly, around the neck and my lower back, they disturb a lot. And they pain also. I have tried this experiment, talking to these parts very intensely during the daytime, especially early morning and especially before going to bed. This body talk has helped me a lot during the change of weather, and it dilutes. Normally it happens, it used to happen very badly in those days. But now, with this body talk, I find certain changes.
That is beautiful. But also that the pain in the neck and pain in the back, lower back, they have different origins. Pain in the neck is something which is an obstruction which you feel whenever you are, either you are concentrating on meditating or bringing down the silence. The resistance of the body first comes with the, in many cases, it first comes with the ache and pain in the neck. So that is something is a very universal phenomenon. And of course, the pain in the lower back is also related to many other things, our way of life and our postures and all. But at the end, pain is pain, and then you have to deal with pain in a different way. What you say that you're talking with the body parts, having a body talk also. You have to find your own yoga. In integral yoga, you have to find your own yoga. You have to develop your own way of developing. Your own personal yoga you have to develop. This is not the same thing for everybody. Certain seed ideas can be taken and they can be developed in your own way.
There is a gentleman who wants to know how to deal with curing autoimmune disease?
Yes, that is, autoimmune disease that you have to go very, very deep inside, because that's real work of the cellular consciousness. You have to concentrate on the psychophysical also, on the vital physical also, because you see that there is an interaction between the vital energy and the physical substance. It's many things. Autoimmune disease is a complication. It's something very complicated, something very different, where the body is trying to go against itself. And so it is more important that you bring the light and power very consistent and harmonious in every part. Much more difficult, but what's the trouble? That can be done. So you have to concentrate also on the body's immune system. So you have to bring down the light into the immune system also. It's not an easy thing. First, let us start identifying that part of our body which is lagging behind, which is not receptive to the light, which is not responding to relaxation. First thing, very basic thing, we try to relax and I find that there are parts that can't relax. Then I know that that is the part where we have to give attention. So this is a basic thing, we can start with that. Anybody can start with that.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Dr. Basu. It was a wonderful session, really wonderful session. And that concludes our course for Heal Yourself with the Power of Consciousness. Certificates will be distributed, and we thank you all very much for participating in this beautiful event, and hope to see you again soon. Okay, goodbye. So recordings will be distributed on Monday, the last session. Thank you very much indeed.